want to welcome you to our program today. We have a very special guest with us. Her name is Elaine James. And so, Elaine, so good to have you on the program today.
Thank you for having me.
And as we begin, I'm going to read from Philippians chapter 4, verses 4 through 7. And so listen to these words that the Apostle Paul writes. Rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again, rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and petition with thanksgiving present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your heart and your minds in Christ Jesus. And so I look at these words as being such comforting words, as the Lord's presence comes upon us, that we have his peace. But we oftentimes think, well, it's easy to have peace and rest with God when everything is going well, but how about when we have these kinds of things going on in life? When we have relationships that are broken, your boss is demanding, it's difficult to pay the bills, your children don't cooperate, your circle of friends are too busy, your spouse nags or doesn't understand, when you're sick, when someone close to you dies, when terrorists wreak havoc in our world, when you're stuck in traffic, when someone gives you the finger, when someone cart rages you in the grocery store. And so these are just some of the things to say, well, I'll tell you what, life is really pulling and stretching at me in every which way, and to say, well, how does God enter into our lives at that point? And so that, Elaine, is something that you want to talk about here this morning.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I look at all of these, because in my last 2 years of my life, I've had a lot of back issues. I had a major surgery, and I was cranky, I was crabby, I wasn't able to do the things that the world's telling us to do holistically, like take care of exercise every day, and those are the things that are supposed to help alleviate all the angst and the anxiety. And so what do I do in the midst of not being able to do all of the holistic things that are supposed to make us feel calmer in life? Mm-hmm. So I started arriving at that these life examples are all opportunities for us to be more like Christ. And so it gives us opportunities. I love this saying. I just wrote this out one day, and I'm going to read it from my notes because I want to get it right. It says that every day is an opportunity to say less, love more, pray more, and all these hardships make us tired and worn out, and then our reactions aren't like Christ, and we're not being a good example for Christ. And that's where my concern lies, is being a great example for Christ, so that people would see the Christ within me. So all these things make our life harder, and they make us to have less tolerance. Mm-hmm. So what do we do? And then I arrived and landed on Hebrews 4. Hebrews 4, 9 and 10, it says, therefore remains then a Sabbath rest for the people of God. For anyone who enters God's rest also enters God's rest from their works. And that whole chapter has 11 times he talks about resting. And I don't mean laying in your bed taking a nap. I'm talking about that we walk in a state of rest and peace, so when these things arrive, like someone gives me the finger or rages after me, how do I choose to react more like Christ? And I feel like as Christians today, our actions are speaking louder than us just quoting verses and blurting out, scripture, and people are just like, what is she talking about? I think our examples are so important.
So when we think about that list of things that I just had mentioned, or that there's almost like two natures about us. It's like we have to decide how we're going to handle this.
Yes.
And so when we think about our human nature, our tendency to react is almost a reptilian reaction of just, somebody does something to you out on the highway, and so it's just easy just to react without thinking too much about it.
Right.
But there's, as Christians, another way of looking at it, and that's a lot of what you're drawing out from Hebrews chapter 4,
right,
which has to do with Sabbath rest.
Yeah.
And so when we think of like the third commandment, remember the Sabbath day and to keep it holy, for a lot of us, we grew up by thinking, well, that means that we go to church on Sunday,
Yep.
and that this whole day is set aside for God, a day of rest, a day of rejuvenation, and then also, well, and that rejuvenation comes through spiritual hearing God's word
Right.
and so forth, which I guess is really kind of maybe would you say that's maybe the foundation or the basis of all of this for the whole
It is,
week in
but
life?
yes. So I feel like it's not only Sunday, it's every day we can have some sort of a Sabbath rest. The Lord said, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." So this is an inner peace. And he says, "Learn from me, for I'm gentle and humble." So we have to take his examples. And so I pre-think through things. If someone's going to come through and jump in line in front of me in the grocery store, I've pre-thought about what will I do as my reaction. I usually say, "Bless them, Lord. There must be something in their life that's going on that they feel they need to jump in front of me." And I don't allow, I mean, I'm not perfect at this, I'm saying, but I'm working at it. And God promises, the thing that's beautiful about Hebrews 4 is it quotes a lot of the old scripture from the Old Testament, where God keeps telling them, "You can have this. You can go into the land with rest. I'll give you rest. I promise you rest." He kept promising and promising, and then they weren't, like, by faith walking in what he's given them, and they kept screwing up. And so he's promising us rest in this inner self of us. It's his holistic approach to, like, dealing with hardship in our life, the brokenness, the hurt, the pain. My back pain made me crabby. How was I to walk around being Christ and feeling pain and crabby? People get migraines all the time from stress, all stress-related diseases. So I'm in the business of, what are you going to do to rest yourself so that you could be a good example? So the disciplines of prayer, taking an art class, something that will rest your mind. I took up art. I never took art in my life. I'm doing art. I can't even believe it. Like things that will rest your mind, so that you have the opportunity to react in a godlike way when things rise up in life. It's not always easy. I'm not saying I have a perfect chart that, oh, I did it. But I'm doing much better, and I love that. I feel better. I feel like I shine more, and I feel like I'm better for other people then if I'm really working at it.
Right. So, like you say, but nobody's perfect at this. But
Right.
It sounds like it's something that, as you take on the nature of Christ,
Yeah.
that it's just something that becomes more and more your lifestyle, not so
Yes.
much obligation of a checklist, but a lifestyle. But I'm finding so much, and I don't know if you'll agree with me or not, but it seems like so many people, wonderful Christian people, but it just seems like time is such a precious commodity that we have.
Right.
But people are just, it seems like the accelerator is just getting pushed down more and more as far as just what's all going into that time frame.
Yeah.
That, well, I just don't have time for
Right.
God. I don't, they all say I need time for God, but right now, I'm trying to get 30 hours worth of work done in a 24-hour period of time, and so there's just no time for God, and that's probably why we get into such troubles when it
Right.
comes to that list.
Right.
When, in the midst of our life, no matter how busy we are, no matter how productive it is, we have relationships that are broken, bosses that are demanding, difficult to pay the bills, children that don't cooperate. It's not like all of life's problems just say, "Oh, well,
Right.
Elaine and Jeff are busy, so all of our problems, we're just going to jump to the back burner of the stove right now."
Right.
That's not how it works.
Right. So we are all overscheduled. And so what do we do about this problem? I'm telling you, when we say less, pray more, and ask God to intervene, I'm saying, "Help me, God," throughout the day now. And having little scripture cards or something to remind us that God promises this rest. So I'll walk around saying, "I can have this rest by faith. I choose to have this rest." And I think of things, pre-think. So if someone rages me, I've thought now automatically I will pray for them. Lord, maybe they've never had, maybe I'm the one that's called to pray for this person today. Like, I will pray for people that are raging in their car or reacting to me unfavorably or something, a boss who's being I'll go in the bathroom and just pray for them. I'll just hide. And so we could be doing these things just naturally throughout the day. You don't have to sit down. Everybody's like, I don't have the time to sit down. Well, you could walk and pray. And I love what you read this morning. Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I say rejoice. Paul, who was shipwrecked, left for hunger, cold, thirsty, beaten, in prison, things we'll never experience. His reaction to life was rejoicing. That's what he chose. He made an inner choice by faith. God help me. I want to walk in and rejoice. So his choice was always to choose rejoice. And even in the midst of the worst things. And what happened in those times? He found he had more time. He found that he could share his faith with a prison mate or a guard. I mean, it opens floodgates of heaven when we just walk and submit into that. And I think that's what he was saying in Hebrews 4. I can give you so much more if you just walk to me and believe me by faith that I will give you opportunities and I will give you the rest that you need for your soul, this inner rest.
So that's one of the things that you mentioned about Paul is that, well, it was like a decision that every day he was kind of at a crossroads of his faith, because every day his faith was challenged.
Every day.
And I guess that's maybe the way that it is to be
Right.
a Christian and to live the Christian life. I guess if our faith isn't being challenged in a day, it's maybe we're not living the way to the fullest then. But he chose to say, rather than being bitter and angry, because that is a path that we can go down,
Yeah.
he chose to say, well, no, I'm going to rejoice in that. So
Right.
that's maybe one of the, what would you say, maybe one of the first things that you have to decide is
Right.
to
Right.
choose to say, no, I'm gonna live by
Yeah.
Christian principles if I can find them in my life.
Yeah. And I would say, I believe with my whole heart, Paul's goal was to love. He really wanted to love. I think his best strategy was loving people with life, saying less, being more prayerful, being more of an example, spoke louder than preaching. I think his goal to love was a decision that he got up every day to do. So if we choose to love and build relationships rather than rushing in and quoting a verse and gaining someone, we could gain them by our example. And I think his goal was to love, and that's what I really want. I want to give more love and look more like love and be love for other people. And so with that decision comes, what am I going to do to be in a state of peace and rest so that I could do that more? And then you think of what's good for you. What's good for you to stay in that state? If you're able to exercise, maybe you'll exercise and squeeze it in. But prayer is the number one. I told you, like going anywhere, praying under your breath, whatever you have to do. But pray. Pray for others. I think talking less today works really well, and just being an example. I'm just going to keep saying that because I think we have skeptics out there that are just, they need to see the example of Christ's love.
Well, James talks about that too.
Yeah.
To be quick to hear, slow to speak,
Yep.
and then slow to anger.
Yep.
And of course, that listening is probably a lot of spending that time and listening to God, right?
You know what's amazing? When Jesus was walking on the road to Emmaus, he didn't even reveal himself. He listened. He said, "What are you guys talking about?" And they were so appealed by him that they invited him to dinner. They still didn't know who they were walking with till they broke the bread, and Jesus chose to reveal himself. So if you have people out there that don't know Christ and you're concerned about their souls, Jesus was the perfect example. The first thing he did when he came back was he walked on the road to Emmaus with those men, and he was just an example of listening, maybe even validating someone and making them feel secure in who they are, more than trying to change them. I just think that's so important. Be you. I love that saying. People are saying that more. Be you. Be you. The best you is knowing Christ and having faith. But if they don't have that yet, you're trying to listen to them and gain trust in their life, so they feel your love, and then the changes will come. Then you know, the subtlety of sharing your faith will come. But I really feel like we have to listen and validate and say, wow, you're really going through a bad time, rather than, well, you should have done this and you should have done that. I think it's so important for us to listen, say less, listen, and pray more.
Yeah. So it's like there's like a twofold benefit here. You know, when I think about, well, everybody wants inner peace. I mean, it's amazing what people are doing to try to get inner peace in their lives, to feel good about themselves. You know, how do you deal with the tough situations of life that come to us on a daily basis?
Right.
But then also, you know, people are just feeling, well, how do I witness to others? You know, to say, well, as a Christian, I'm to be witnessing to others, and we have all of our little techniques that we can maybe have to try to start sharing Christ with others. But a lot of it, what you're basically saying is that, well, it becomes a natural thing in how you live your life.
Yeah.
You know, that shines through more than, well, not to say that other evangelistic techniques aren't important,
Right.
a way to get talking about our
Right.
faith, but to say that the way that you live your life is going to shine forth stronger than ever, that
Right.
people can see Christ in you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. I worked in the school district this last semester as a sub in the food service area. So I had my little net on. I wasn't dressed really, you know, I was in the back making food and working at the register. And the women around me, I felt like it was my responsibility to be a good example. So when I went out and cleaned tables, I would do a lady who said her back was hurting more. I would try and do her tables. I mean, even if they were crabby back to me, because sometimes when people don't feel good in the food service line, I notice some of those ladies are like 80 and they're hurting and they're having a really bad day. They retaliate, like, "What are you doing? Why are you doing that? Why are you going? Give me my food," you know, and they're angry that day. So my choice was always to just love them back and just feel sorry that their back's hurting. And I would just go do their tables, right? No matter what they said to me, if it was mean or I wasn't doing work good enough, I tried to come back with love. And I couldn't preach there because I'm in the school and you can't really do that. I just set an example. I went in there and I prayed up every morning before I went in, driving. God, let me be an example to these women. And I was able to do supernatural things like clean 5 more extra tables. Because my back's hurting me too. But I wanted to do it for them because I wanted to set an example that we could approach things with better approaches, better hearts towards each other. And I was always, and one day one of them said to me, "I don't know what's so different around here, but ever since Josephine, the lady I replaced, is gone, things seem more cheerful and like we're a team." And that was my goal, to make a team, to build a team of love where we really are caring. And then life and work is more tolerable and you want to go there every day. Some of the women go there every day and they would be like, "I don't even want to be here, I hate it." You know, and I'm like, wow, what a way to live every day. To go to a place you hate, why can't you make it a place you love? So I just, by example, kept trying so hard to just pray up before I went and pray for them. And they received me. It was amazing.
You know, when I think about all of this, you know, so much, you know, we hear of assertiveness training. You got to be assertive in life. You know, that you don't want to be run over in life. You don't want to be a doormat. And sometimes that's, you know, almost kind of the way Christians can be sometimes, is to say, well, you know, I shouldn't confront, I shouldn't point out, you know, but then they get angry and resentful because, well, I was just trying to be kind and loving, but yet I've been run over by a Mack truck today because, you know, because I've allowed this to happen. I haven't established, you know, boundaries and so forth. And so, but it's almost like, you know, rather than assertiveness, you know, what you're saying, but it's almost like a powerful Christian witness. It's like, well, I'm not being run over this day, but I'm showing whomever is doing this to me that there is another way of going about life, so to speak.
Right.
Yeah.
And I guess it's getting up and deciding, what do you want your goal to be today? To look the best in front of your boss, or have the best burrito meat or whatever. And I was just like, I don't know what their desires are, but my desire and my goal, and I would be prayed up in, was that I just want to show Christ's love. And that was my goal. And how can I look like and help me love this, what I'm doing? I mean, some days stocking and doing hard labor, you're just like, well, not hard labor, but just restocking things and everything is not that fun. But I wanted to look like I was rejoicing, like Paul, like look like love. And so I would just ask God to help me, and he'd always tickle me with like being able to just have good camaraderie with them. Like just say, what did you do last night? And, just build a team. And it worked. It worked. So I guess it's our goal of what do you want out of your work?
Okay. Well, yeah, so when you look at work, because some people, like you're on the highway,
Yeah.
and somebody does something, it's just like, well, you can just pray for them and not retaliate, because that could really be have its terrible, devastating consequences.
Right.
But yet, you probably will never see that person again. So it's just like, there they go. Whereas people that you work with, it's just like, well, I dealt with them today. It was a tough day, and well, the next day, here we are again.
Yeah.
It's just like, well, so you got the people that are kind of, that you cross paths in a day and that you may never see again.
Yeah.
But then you have the people that you have to work with and live with, day by day, week by week, year by year. Yeah, so it's with the same principle, though.
Yeah, yeah. So sometimes I say to my family members, when we start talking negative, like about my son, let's say, and I would say, wait, let's not do that. Let's talk about the positive things that he is doing great, rather than always focusing on what he's struggling with right now. And that's a great example of like just lifting out of this negative state to bring us more into a peaceful, restful state would be thinking about the good things about him. What is he doing great right now? Maybe that would turn around the point about why are your kids not cooperating with you? Maybe you are choosing to look at what they're not doing right all the time rather than what they're doing right. And so that, I think, turning around, what are we focusing on? I heard this cute thing recently. I heard myself being negative about life drudgery things like driving my kids somewhere or getting up or making my husband's lunch or stuff like that. And a friend of mine said, you should turn around and take that as an opportunity to say, I get to make his lunch. I get to have a husband who I'm with. And we have a marriage. I get to drive my children. Like change everything in the day to I get to, rather than drudgery or I don't look forward to. So being more optimistic about the things that we have privileges of.
Seeing that life is a blessing, that life is a gift, that this is an opportunity. Life is only so, life is short, really.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say that we are a person, or that we are a person. I'm trying to include all of us in a case here where how to deal with something. Okay, you're in the post office. You got a heavy box, and you're standing in line. You've already kind of been, your patience is kind of wearing as you are your arms are getting tired from holding this, and somebody just kind of goes right in front of you into the line, and you think, is this for real? Now, do I say something, or do I just bite my tongue? And then they go up in front, and they are served before you are, even though here you are, exhausted from holding this, and you think, well, this isn't being very kind.
Right.
And so you're looking at, what are my options right now? Well, just to be silent, or to say something, maybe to say something that's not so nice to this person. But then the third option would be to help us here.
So I sometimes will just say, bless them, what's going on that they didn't see me? God, what is going on? Intervene here. Maybe they need you and no one's ever prayed. God, intervene. Visit him today. I just start praying that he would have the ability to see that he did it wrong.
So you pray for this person.
Yeah, under my breath. And then I would think of a choice of, do I need to do this right now? Sometimes I'll just say, my arms are killing me, the line's not moving, I'm getting really crabby, and I may choose to leave and do it another time. Now, if you can't leave, sometimes I'll figure out, maybe I'll put the boxes on the ground. What is wrong with me that I can't stand there? Or would I confront them? There are kind ways to say, hey, I've been waiting here for like 10 minutes, and I noticed you went in line. Did you not see? Maybe you might have to confront
the person.
Maybe you can confront them in a sweet way, But no matter what, I always pray to see, what does God want me to do? And sometimes I'm stirred to confront. Sometimes I'm not. So I guess there's different ways to look at it.
Rather than just saying something that's mean to this person, you can say something in a kind and loving way.
Yeah.
You say, oh, you must not have seen that I was here, or,
Yeah.
you know, or I really do need to get moving along
Yeah.
here because these boxes are getting
You don't
heavier
have
and
to be a
heavier.
doormat. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So I would say that the main thing is what's really cool is we're more concerned about what God thinks than what Elaine thinks or what that man thinks, right? I mean, we're sitting in the line asking God, what do I do here? And if we're doing that all day, we're living the way God told us to. It's just
So as you are praying, so a lot of this is as you are praying for someone,
yeah,
that God is giving you that inner peace and that inner rest, but also granting you the wisdom as to how to deal with this
Yeah.
situation.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so you're focused more on and more concerned about what God thinks than
Yes,
what you
so
think.
in the little time that we have here, you know, we look at, well, going to church on Sunday morning, and we listen to the pastor preach or the priest, and then we say, well, okay, I've had my Sabbath rest today, but you look at Monday through Saturday, so how are you looking at that Sabbath rest? Is it just praying as you go, or are there certain ways to say, well, today I've had my Sabbath rest because I have done these disciplines in order to have that?
So it's both. It's praying more and being concerned about, hey, am I doing the holistic things that are going to give me that inner rest that I need so that if you don't get good sleep, you know what's going to happen that next day if you only sleep 2 hours. So it's having that inner disciplines, and your goal is to glorify God in all you say and do. Everything we do. And everything is an opportunity to be able to do that.
So if you can exercise, if you can get your right sleep and eat right,
Right.
and to have this attitude that I'm going to rejoice in the Lord, I'm going to glorify God
Yeah.
in my life,
Yeah.
and that we just pray as we go
Yep,
throughout
pray
the day.
as we go.
Just pray constantly.
Yeah.
Pray continually. That's another one of Paul's
Yeah.
little sayings that he
Yeah.
has. Well,
And love more. Your goal is to love more.
And to love more.
Look like love.
We
To
can't
look
go-
like love. So people want to approach you and be around you. So
yeah, and that's what Christ has called us to do, is to love others, and hopefully it's becomes a natural thing as Christ dwells within us.
right.
Well, this is Elaine James. So good to have you with
Thank
us.
you.
She's a speaker, and she's a woman of great inspiration. And so just thank you for helping us to focus a little bit more on what it means to have a Sabbath rest, not just on Sunday,
Right.
but throughout the day, and what an effect that and what a difference that makes upon our lives.
Right.
And so I want to thank all of you for joining us this day as well.
Thank you.